welcome to the only movie podcast.
No, technically, we are the only podcast about movies.
What the hell is the difference, man?
The other names.
Fair enough. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And I'm Shahir Dowd.
And for the next hour, we will be discussing the short film sensation, Kung Fury.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at the list of films we could watch this week.
We did.
Which was, San Andreas.
Yep, that's true.
Aloha, the new Cameron Crowe film.
I thought you were saying Aloha to San Andreas at first. Then I remembered that's an actual movie.
Well, The Rock is Hawaiian.
I know. Aloha, Dwayne Johnson.
Well, he's Samoan.
He's Samoan. It's not the same.
It is not the same at all. But yeah, so we looked at all those films. I mean, there are a bunch of other independent films you can go see this week as well.
But this is an independent. Is it an independent film? Yeah, kind of.
Kickstarter.
Sure. Is that independent technically? You're dependent on a lot of people.
Hey, any movie you're making, you're dependent on a lot of people.
Fair enough.
So why don't we explain what the film is?
Sure.
Kung Fury, short film available right now on YouTube, funded by Kickstarter backers. Like a huge success on Kickstarter.
Right.
They were looking for $200,000. They got $660,000.
God bless them.
I mean, good for them. I mean, the guy's name is David Sandberg.
Okay. He's of Swedish descent, is he not?
Of Swedish descent, though you couldn't tell except in the occasional accent slip.
Right.
And the film was really a huge online sensation. Not just this week, but in its original form, which was a trailer, because that trailer is pretty amazing. Like you would be I think you'd be hard pressed to look at that trailer and say that was not one of the best trailers of 2012.
Yeah, something like that. 2011 or 12. I'm pulling it up right now. You'd think the only podcast about movies would be more prepared to talk about movies.
Yeah.
No, yeah, so it's been around for a bit. Let's just say that. It's been around for a while. It's been in the sort of nerd lexicon for quite some time. And it's nice to see it finally sort of out. And I never knew what they were going to do with it. I don't know if they were they probably were transparent that they were just going to put it on YouTube. I mean, the guy who made it, what?
Well, you weren't a backer, were you?
I was not a backer, no.
Neither was I.
Because it made $600,000 by the time I heard of it.
I know, and this is the thing. We're reaping the rewards of other people's investment at this point. It's such, it is.
They got prizes for their tier level of donation. They're fine.
Yeah, no, and it's great. We just watched it. It is really a lot of fun. There are problems with it, and there are things I'd want to talk about later on.
Sure,
but let's. What is it about? If you had to give a brief synopsis about Kung Fury and make it sound less insane than Mad Max Fury Road, which we talked about last week.
Okay, so Kung Fury is the story of a cop aptly named Kung Fury who is imbibed with the spirit of actual Kung Fury, which is a special type of Kung Fu that only one person can have at a time. And he got it by trying to capture someone with his partner that happened to be a Kung Fu master, but he got hit by lightning and bit by a cobra at the same time, and that infused him with enough Kung Fu DNA, I think is kind of how they play it out in the film, that made him into Kung Fury. And since then, he's been the ultimate person in Kung Fu and the best cop ever.
Oh, the greatest cop,
in fact, he is only since then, so this is going to get into a little bit of spoilers in the first 5 minutes. This movie's only a half hour long.
Yeah.
His partner, like all great 80s action movies, dies, and he refuses to get another partner, and he quits the force, and that's where sort of the story begins.
You'd say he's a loner, right?
He's a loner. He works alone.
He works alone.
And this film is the ultimate homage to every sort of 80s action movie. Well,
you picked the exact reference.
I did.
I didn't see this, but you did, and we just watched the trailer.
We were going through the list. Let me pull up the list that you made because it's very important. So we're like, oh, well, this movie is drawing a lot from a lot of places. It's drawing from Terminator, Miami Vice, Street Fighter, Double Dragon, even Final Fight. The Thing. There was a reference to, and also, but really, what this movie is 100%. Honestly, is the movie Cobra starring Sylvester Stallone.
And what was Cobra's name?
Miriam Cobretti.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
that's
or it might have been Miriam Cobretti. I don't know, but either way, it's.
Now here's what we want you to do. If you watch the movie, we're asking you before you listen to this podcast, stop it right here. Go and watch Kung Fury. It's only half an hour long, and immediately after you watch Kung Fury, watch the trailer to Cobra.
Right.
And you will see exactly all the references this film is pulling, the style, the look. And the funny thing is the clip on the Cobra trailer on YouTube is off an old VHS tape, which is exactly the look of this film.
Yeah, so that's kind of the crux behind this. So the guy who made it, David, what was his name?
Sandberg.
David Sandberg. He is, would you call him just a visual effects genius? It's whiz? What would you...
He directs commercials, music videos. He's like a lot of young filmmakers these days are jack of all trades.
Right.
They're a visual effects artists. They're cinematographers. This guy is an actor, fairly good-looking guy.
Yeah, well, wouldn't kick him off a dinosaur.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard that phrase before, and I think I'm going to use it tonight.
There you go.
But he's a guy who can do all sorts of things. He was on the visual effects team, and the visual effects in this film are kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he had a big budget, but bigger than what we have.
But the other thing is that the visual effects are appropriately pitched at this film. It
Right.
feels like even if he had $5 million to make this 30-minute film, he would turn in the exact same film.
Right.
It looks like what he wanted.
Well, there's a lot of love behind it too. I think you can see that. I think you can see that from the internet sort of. I mean, you can tell.
Yeah.
And it's the style of it is, it's an homage to 80s movies, and it tries to look let me take that back. It doesn't try to look like an 80s movie. It tries to feel like an 80s movie looks.
Yeah, and it's got this sort of VHS kind of like lo-fi quality to it.
There's some tracking issues on occasion on purpose, which I enjoyed.
It is a entirely or predominantly a green screen film. But the green screen kind of works in its favor.
Right.
Like maybe in the way Sin City does a little bit. I think the look of this film is fantastic. I think the sound, the score is really great. This is a film that really knows its references and really understands its references and works them. And so, Cobra, The Thing, Terminator, Miami Vice, all of those movies are in this film.
Right.
Now, that is at once a great thing because, at 30 minutes, it's a great thing to watch with friends. It's a barrel laugh. It's got 4 million views on YouTube right now.
In 2 days.
In 2 days, which is ridiculous. So I'm sure it's going to skyrocket. Like people are writing about it all over the place. And I know they've got a deal for a feature film.
Great.
But here's the problem of a film like this.
Wait. Is there trouble in Kung Fu Paradise?
Oh, boy. Don't you think that this film at 1 hour and 20 minutes would outlast its welcome at half an hour?
It's interesting because I thought that originally. I got a text about this movie today when we were talking back and forth, like maybe we could do this or whatever, and I don't want to see Aloha. But then what we kind of came up with before I suggested Kung Fury, my friend Gayton, who I don't know if you know Gayton.
Gayton D. Simone?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Gayton.
Okay, hey.
Hey, Gayton.
Hey,
How's it going?
Yeah. He was like, dude. Did you? And I haven't talked to him in like 6 months.
Yeah.
He's like, dude, did you see Kung Fury? And I was like, I saw the trailer forever ago. I'm like, I just don't think I could sit through an hour and a half of it. Like, I just don't, because it would sort of, it's a great joke, but it's still sort of a one-note joke.
It is a one-note joke.
Yeah. So then he's like, no, dude, it's a half hour. And I was like, oh, I can watch that.
Yeah, it is a great, the perfect length for this kind of film. But I know that. So here's the thing. There is definitely, and you can see this in the trades, in Variety, and whatever trade magazines you're reading right now, that there is definitely an appetite for short films from young filmmakers,
right,
particularly science fiction bent or, with some sort of visual effects component that could be turned into a feature film.
Yeah.
And there's only very few of those that have actually worked out, well. And probably the most famous one recently is District 9. Which came from a short film that Neil Blomkamp did.
Right.
But, like right now there are two big sales recently, one from a film called Sundays, one from another film called Controller, both very good music video directors. But ultimately, and they're great looking short films.
Yeah.
Go look them out. They're pretty mind-blowing. The short film is not what it used to be.
No.
The short film has production values that match, feature films these days. But those are, in the politest sense, very, very slight on story and more like a sales reel for, hey, I could direct a feature film.
Yeah.
Whereas this does feel a little more like I have a cool story to tell, and clearly I have an audience for it now because there are people who are willing to watch it.
it's a simple story, but it's a cool story. I mean, this movie lives and dies on cool. Like, that's what it does.
Yeah, totally.
So there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it has,
and it is cool.
It has a beginning, middle, end, and sort of teaser for a possible sequel. I doubt we'll see a direct sequel to Kung Fury.
Well, here's an interesting comparison: is that the film not only debuted on YouTube, but it also debuted on the El Rey network, which is Robert Rodriguez's network.
Oh yeah.
And so the parallel, obviously, is Grindhouse.
Well, the parallel kind of is. Well, continue your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you could argue Sin City as well.
That wasn't what I was going to argue.
Oh, that wasn't one.
Continue.
Well, we'll come back to that. But to me, the parallel is Grindhouse, which is like Grindhouse. The whole concept for Grindhouse started out as little short trailers, basically in the same way this did, and then got extended out into feature films. And my problem with Grindhouse is extended out into feature films, they're not that great. Machete. The Robert Rodriguez Grindhouse film in particular, I forgot.
Planet Terror.
Planet Terror, yeah. I mean, I don't know how you felt about those films, but like
I liked Planet Terror.
You didn't like Quentin Tarantino's film?
It was. You know, sometimes when you see something, you're like, oh man, that's really clever, and then they're clever for like 2 hours, and you're like, I don't give a shit that you're clever anymore because you're just saying the same clever shit.
Well, that's the problem. That is the
yeah.
Okay, look, it's not the problem. Like I don't want to be a Nelly naysayer. That is a phrase I'm going to use tonight. Wow. But I don't want to like dismiss a film before it comes out.
Of course.
And the mark of every great filmmaker that we've seen is that they can come up with this one amazing concept that really puts them on the map, and then they evolve. And so like we hope that David Sandberg, who's now, inevitably made a mark on the cinematic world. I'm sure he's getting calls from agents all over the place. I'm sure, like people are lining up at his door to like even cast him in movies, I think he could be an actor as well.
Yeah.
Let's hope that the next thing he does, signals some kind of evolution. Like you could argue that, if you've seen Alive in Joburg, Neil Blomkamp's film, from Alive in Joburg to District 9, there is a real evolution of storytelling. There's a real like, all right, let's take this idea and let's really flesh it out into a story.
Yeah.
So I hope that, if there's a feature film version of Kung Fury, that he really fleshes it out. I think, personally, this would work better as, if they are going to continue with this world, this story, this look, this would work better as a web series, for my money. I mean, would you pay money to see this in the theater? An hour and a half of it.
No, because when I thought it was out today and it was an hour and a half, I was like, I'm not going to watch it. So if I'm not going to watch it for free, and an hour and a half, I'm not going to go pay money to watch it for an hour.
It would have to be exceptional, right? Like I would have
to get word of mouth, and then people would be like, no, you really need to. This is insane. And I'll be like, really? It doesn't get old? And if they said nope, then hey.
I mean, another good example that I really like, and you were going to interrupt me with some other ones. I think Sin City is, Sin City 1 is a film that holds its own as a feature-length film. I think that really works as a feature. I really like Sin City a lot.
I like Sin City a lot too, but I also haven't seen it in a lot of years.
Yeah.
I don't know when the last time you have is, but it not that it doesn't, I think it probably ages fine as a film, but I wonder, now that we've seen,
Sin City 2?
Well, yeah, no, but like, I got to bring everything back to Marvel. Sin City was sort of the first film like that we'd seen.
Yeah.
Honestly. And that, I think, really garnishes a lot of, like, goodwill towards a film and the feelings you have towards a film. Just like, for me, Avengers 1 was this, pinnacle of a certain thing because I'd never seen it before. Avengers 2, I like it a lot, but I don't think it didn't give me the same feels as Avengers 1 did, where, like, I think now that Sin City has sort of broken that, and I'm not even talking about Sin City 2, I didn't see that, I don't know, whatever. But, like, Sin City's special because it was first.
Yeah.
This is special because it's first in its own sort of weird little niche way. That I'm talking about Kung Fury.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, and granted, I know 4 million hits in 2 days on YouTube is a big deal, and like it's probably going to become sort of a virally hit, but it's going to also be something like people are going to know that Kung Fury was a viral hit but not have seen it. And that's where it's going to hopefully find its audience if it becomes a feature film.
It's weird when you think about it. Like, the feature film, the blockbuster feature film industry is still treating YouTube as kind of testing ground for young filmmakers. It's kind of like the place where and that makes sense, because if you're a young filmmaker, you're not going to get your film into a theater. You're going to get it into onto YouTube or Vimeo or whatever. But I guess, for me, what's interesting is if the whole paradigm of the way we distribute feature films changes and Kung Fury lives and dies on YouTube. It lives and dies in the online world, and that's the only place you can see it.
Yeah.
Like the other example that's going to be coming out this summer is Pixels, the new film starring Ben Stiller, directed by Chris Columbus. That was originally a short film.
It's not starring Ben Stiller, it's starring Adam Sandler.
Oh. Okay, Adam Sandler.
Yeah, I was like, "There's no awful Ben Stiller movie coming out." And I was like, "Oh wait, yeah,
no, you're right. Yeah, sorry, my bad." But Pixels was a short film, a really cool proof of concept short film. It was really fun, and then they've expanded it out into a feature film. And
have they expanded though?
I gotta admit, you look at the trailer and you're like, this has none of the vibrancy, the excitement,
no charm.
Yeah. But then that might just be a virtue of the fact that you're putting it into a big, into a multiplex. You're putting movie stars in it.
You're putting Adam Sandler in it.
You're putting Adam Sandler in it. You're throwing a lot of money at it.
I always feel bad. Can we talk about this for 2 seconds? I always feel bad mouthing Adam Sandler. I mean, he still is a moneymaker, and he the Grown Ups and all that stuff. But like, he was so great, and like, his films were so funny, and they're still funny to me today, which leads me to believe it's not like an age restriction thing, like, oh, I was 18 and they were really cool. Nothing he's made in the last 10 years has made me turn my head, and it's just...
Oh, everything he's made in the last 10 years has probably made you turn your head away from the screen.
So, like, I don't know. So tagging, like, oh, man, this is a great, independent, cool, totally, like, people haven't seen something like this film that we got off the internet, we bought, we're dealing with the director, and da-da-da-da, and it's going to be great.
They're not.
Oh, they're not?
It's gone to Chris Columbus, who directed Home Alone, who directed the first 2 Harry Potter films. So
either way, they take this great idea, and they, you know what, because it's even better, guys, is present-day Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
Not
listen, I have
2000s Adam Sandler.
Look, we're getting sidetracked, but I have a lot of hope for Adam Sandler because to me, like those are the Happy Madisons, is a great film. But
Billy Madison is the film. Happy Madison is his company.
Is his company. What was the other film where he went back to school? Was Billy
Madison who went back to school. Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore
was the golf one. Then it's Happy Madison is his
whole thing. Yeah, that's where I got confused. But and it all reaches a peak at Punch Drunk Love for me. Like that's and I think I love Punch Drunk Love with pure passion.
Well, that's the thing with Adam Sandler. And again, this isn't the Adam Sandler. This isn't the only podcast about Adam Sandler. This is the only podcast you're going to be hearing about Kung Fury. Seriously, go check out the other ones. They're not there. I mean, don't actually go to prove me wrong. Just take my word for it that there's no other podcasts about Kung Fury.
I searched high and low.
And we thought, man, we should probably just do this. But Adam Sandler has such potential, and like not even potential. He's proven himself like
over and over again.
It's so I don't know. It just bothers me.
Let's. What was this movie we're talking about? Kung Fury. Well, I mean, okay, so.
So Adam Sandler stars as Kung Fury. No.
Oh my God! If they did a remake and Adam Sandler stars,
if Adam Sandler is in the Kung Fury movie, I don't know what
you'll boycott it just on principle.
It just I don't think that'll happen.
So the other thing is like when it comes to comedies, there are very few films that actually like make me laugh out loud. And Kung Fury had me laughing out loud and giggling kind of like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and
then the actual spectacle of it, the actual. Oh my God, they did this! Wow, my jaw drops kind of moments. I gotta admit, and I'm ragging on the Avengers right now, as I will for a while. But the opening of this film of Kung Fury,
right,
I think rivals the Avengers in terms of spectacle. And wow, maybe it's because we know the budget, maybe because we know it's independent and it's small,
and it's the first time you've seen something like this.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
But it has scale. Like you wouldn't expect a short film to have this kind of scale.
Right. No, and that's great. Again, it's the first time you've seen a short film have this sort of scale with this cool art style and whatever. Like, it's the first time. The Avengers is cool because it's the first time you see competently done throwing all these worlds together to do its thing. Like, it's all of... the more I see it, especially... I saw Age of Ultron, by the way, again this week.
I really feel we should rename our podcast to... The only podcast where we reference Avengers every time.
It's funny. I was watching it again, and I was like, man, like the first act now, Act 1 where they're in the snow.
Yeah.
I'm just like this. I don't like this.
Yeah.
But the rest of the movie flips very quickly for me, and I really, really enjoy it. And it's because I think it opens with that huge, long, it's the same, it's the one shot, quote unquote, that they stitched together to make the big shot, which they had in the first Avengers near the end, and it was amazing because I'd never seen it before. Anyway, I think a lot of this stuff, Kung Fury included, it will live on not only because it is very, very technically done well and crafted with a lot of love, but also because we have not seen a thing like it.
I don't know if we have not seen a thing like it. Like I say, like check out Sundays, directed by what is his name, Misha Rozema.
But is Sundays in the other film there,
Controller,
they're not getting the same press as this thing.
They've been now those films are kind of, they were set up by Hollywood agencies to be sold. So as soon as they were launched online, they were like launched.
So it's different.
It's slightly different, yeah, and they're much slighter in story.
Yeah.
But the level of spectacle of film. If you were just going on spectacle alone, both those, well, Sundays in particular, kind of rivals the Avengers. It looks, it's in the same sort of quality as well. Like it's big, it's photorealistic. Whereas Kung Fury is not photorealistic.
No,
it's just kind
but
of,
it's honest to its style, which makes it fine.
Yeah, and it still manages to give you that sense of grandeur and scale. That does surprise you. It never looks cheap. That's the amazing. I mean, although the aesthetic, the art style is functionally cheap.
It never looks cheap because it's going for cheap. That's what it. I mean, it's.
And if we were to point out to one of the faults, it's not a fault, but like
it can have a fault.
In the first 5 minutes of the film, they kind of do this VHS cutaway. Like the VHS tape is grinding up, and it feels like they're doing it. I don't think this is necessarily the case, but it does feel a little bit like, hey, we couldn't quite pull off the effects we wanted, so here are like some snippets of
I don't
effects.
think so, man. I'm going to actually... It's so funny you're saying this about this, and last week I was saying that about the Mad Max scene, about him walking away, and I was like, well, they can't show it.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, it's a story reason. I think this is a story reason, too, because look, you watch this film, there's no doubt they could have dragged it out and showed a big bunch of cool fight scenes, getting them from place to place. And yeah, that's neat, but then you're putting too much spectacle in the beginning. Or you can have this really funny gag of when he's fighting this arcade machine come to life, the tracking gets all bad, and all of a sudden they go from pounding each other on the street to hanging off a helicopter to being on some scaffolding to being
on the moon.
To being on the moon. No, it wasn't the moon. It was I'm sorry. It was
a space station.
He crashes into the Hubble telescope.
Yeah. No, maybe you're right there. Maybe it is. It just kind of like when you start watching it, I guess maybe, the thing is, and maybe this is a function of it being a Kickstarter film. The viewing the viewing experience is different. When you go into a film like Avengers and you see a shitty effect, you kind of think, what were they thinking?
Right.
Whereas in this, you're kind of going, oh, well, they didn't have enough money. Like, at least they're trying to cover it up. But maybe that's a fault in my perceptual experience.
Inside baseball.
Film. Yeah.
What sports reference?
Oh my God, I don't even know what baseball is.
Oh man, it's the thing. It's not football. It's
American cricket, right?
Yeah. No, that's exactly what it is.
American cricket.
Yeah,
equally boring without alcohol.
Oh, Jiminy. Yeah. So I think let's talk a little bit about. Well, you said David Sandberg. You think he could act?
I mean, yeah, maybe maybe I could backtrack on that a little bit. I'm doing a lot of backtracking. I backtracked off my vignette idea, and now I'm backtracking off this. Look, he certainly looks like a movie star.
Oh yeah, no, he's an attractive man.
Yeah, no, but he looks like he has that kind of like. You can put him
stoicism. If you put him next to, it's so funny. You want to see the similarities between this and Cobra. Take a still of him in Kung Fury, and take a still of Stallone in Cobra, and they look damn close. I think Cobra has a 5 o'clock shadow, and that's pretty much the difference.
Well, they look slightly, they have different face, but it's that, like when this is coming back to me as a filmmaker, like one of the things I always look for in actors isn't necessarily their ability to deliver lines, but their ability for me to put the camera on them and just have the camera point at them for like 2 minutes and have it be interesting. Is this a person who I want to see on camera?
Right.
And there's a certain you see this, like if you make enough films, if you cast enough people, you see it, that thing. Some people got it, some people don't, is really true. And I think watching this, David Sandberg, whatever it is, he got it. Okay. Like he's got that star kind of quality about him. He's got that kind of like screen presence that makes you go, I want to see what's happening behind that guy's eyes. I want to know what's happening there. So Could he deliver lines in another film? I don't know, because this film has like a purposely overdubbed kind of feel to it.
Right.
He's
And a certain type of lines.
He's Swedish, so he's like, pretending to have an American accent as well. Would that work in any other context? Maybe, maybe not. But then,
Arnold made it.
Hey, Arnold made it. You could have argued to me, I wouldn't have believed Jack Black would have a career outside of High Fidelity, but he does. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So who's to say
he's on HBO now, Shahir? So back the fuck up.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. At High Fidelity, I wouldn't have said, "Oh, that guy's going to have a range of movies."
Fucking kakayas. That's what he says. It's a Tenacious D thing.
It's a Tenacious and kielbasa sausage and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. No, I get it. I see where your nerd references is.
But okay. So you're in that camp. I agree. I mean, look, I think he's very interesting, and I think in the right sort of roles like this, he's great.
Yeah. And then the other side of it is the marketing of this film. The genius moment was having David Hasselhoff do the song.
Let's talk about that, because that's a recent. So this has been on the internet in trailer form and a couple other ways for a long time. In fact, I thought this movie had dropped twice already.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, maybe 3 months ago, David Hasselhoff comes out with the track you'll hear at the beginning and the end of this podcast called, I think it's called just
We Need Some Action.
We Need Some Action.
We Need Some Action.
And it's really catchy and good in 80s, and they made a video with it, and like Kung Fury meets David Hasselhoff, and they even make the Hoff 9000 or whatever is his car.
The Knight Rider reference, right? Yeah.
Which is interesting to have David Hasselhoff be the car.
He's Kit now.
Full circle.
Oh.
I mean, that's genius. I mean,
it's great marketing, and it shows to me that they're, like you could have argued this is a niche Swedish little thing, that might never make it out of Sweden or out of a small nerd circle. And as much as David Hasselhoff is not like a mainstream popular figure, like he's certainly like a he's sort of a...
He's a cultural... He's a global icon, whether you like it or not.
He's a global icon, but he couldn't open a movie.
No, not an American movie.
Not an American movie. But to include him here suggests that there is an interest in this film and a place for this film much
legitimacy.
Broader, much broader than the internet.
Yeah, he lended his legitimacy, and around the world, I know, listeners, this is an insane sort of thing to say, but David Hasselhoff has legitimacy. He is huge
in Europe,
all over the damn place, and just because he's the Baywatch guy here doesn't mean.
Yeah, I mean,
damn thing.
The EMAs a couple of years ago, David Hasselhoff was like one of the main guests, and he just tore it up. He was huge. So like from a purely production point of view, from the from David Steinberg's acting ability, his kind of movie star quality,
right, to
how well we've already kind of touched on how well the movie is made. Story wise, I think it touches on like the '80s tropes really well. There are a couple of really great sight gags with the Triceracop.
Oh yeah, when this becomes a big Hollywood movie, Adam Sandler will play Triceracop.
And then beyond that, I think the story, surprisingly has legs because it has a time travel element to it, which they kind of like bring back and forth, and it works. They've made, and then I guess thinking about. We should really call this the only movie podcast that talks about the Avengers every time.
You're doing it now. I have no control over this.
But I was thinking about the Avengers a lot.
Of course you were.
At the end of this film.
As you should.
As I should.
At the end of every film.
Oh, boy. If you haven't guessed it by now, Matthew Kroll is a huge fan of the Avengers. And I'm actually not a fan.
Let's make something very clear. We discovered one day. Let's time travel a little bit because this is a short film. We have to fill time, so we're going to time travel a little bit back. We're going to hack through time right now. And go back to maybe 2 or 3 months ago when Shahir came over to my house to watch Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And he's like, oh, I heard really good things. He's like, and I've seen some superhero movies with Shahir, some Marvel ones in particular. And Shahir, it just they never really clicked with him. And we watched Captain America, the Winter Soldier. And I don't know if you've seen that, but it's phenomenal in a lot of different ways, in a lot of surprising ways. And I think your main reaction when you were done was just like, meh. Yeah, right?
I think that
So-
that's the thing. They don't land with
And
me.
that's when I determined that the joke that I always use with Shahir is that he hates fun. It's like, oh, well, it's because you hate fun. But going deeper into that sort of, loving jab, it's just because that these aren't, you're absolutely right. These films don't resonate with you on a certain level. And in order for these films to work in any way, they need to resonate with an audience member.
Yeah.
And if they're just fucking sliding off you, then they're just not for you.
Not for me at all.
And you know what I find interesting every time? You always, I think you really want them to be. Like, I think you want to walk out of a Marvel movie and be like, this is my franchise.
Yeah, I really,
But I don't think you ever will.
And we mentioned it last week, but Terminator 2, I want to feel that way again. When I walked out of Terminator 2, and I was like, I want to walk right back in and watch it. And the thing about Mad Max, which we talked about last week, is Mad Max kind of gave me somewhat a glimmer of that experience again, and it made me realize I'm not just an old man who's like slowly dying.
Terminator 2 was the first film I ever cried at.
Really?
Yeah.
I think mine might have been Dead Poet Society.
Okay, a little bit different.
This might explain how. But anyway,
I know now why you cry.
The reason I was thinking about the Avengers at the end of it was that I thought one of the things that David Steinberg did so well in this film is that at the end of this film, there's a big action scene that involves all the major characters that you've seen through so far.
Right.
And what Josh, I do give the Avengers credit for, and Josh Whedon is really good at. Josh,
not Josh. Joss.
That that guy, the Firefly guy.
Oh yeah, the Firefly guy.
Firefly over there. What he's really good at is
on
giving
the space station now. Sorry.
He's really good at giving each character a voice and an identity that is like tangible. And they don't even need to do much, but you know that the Hulk is this guy. Iron Man is this guy. Captain America is this guy. And the funny thing about watching this film, if we're going to draw a comparison between the Avengers and Kung Fury.
Let's do it.
Is that David Steinberg in 30 minutes manages to do a similar thing, which is that all the major characters who appear at the end of the film, some of which we've only seen for like a couple of minutes, we know exactly what their fighting style is. We know like what their they're not just like loose personalities that we don't really care about. We know what they are.
But here's the deal. There's the difference.
Oh, here's the rub.
They're not characters.
They're caricatures.
They're caricatures.
Yeah.
There's 2 Viking girls with machine guns. Okay, you know what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
They have Thor's in this movie.
Yeah, Thor is here.
Thor's in this movie, but he's
the
Norse god. He's the true Norse god
and
of Thor.
And his picks are epic.
Yeah. So whatever. Hacker Man, you know what Hacker Man's gonna do. And Triceracop is a cop with a Triceratops head, so he just has a gun and whatever.
But don't look, I will say this. It is very difficult to actually draw characters that well. And there's, here's the thing. If you watch Sundays, like you will have a hard time figuring out who is anyone in Sundays.
Well, that's just because this film is so stylized in its different characters. Like, they're so different.
I think it's a fundamental thing of good filmmaking.
Okay.
And it's one of those things that we forget about that is so difficult to do. But it's like, how do you draw a character so quickly, that the audience understands? And sometimes it's the most simple things. But here's the thing: when someone gets it wrong, you really know it,
right?
And a lot of filmmakers get it
wrong. This is where the Avengers in this differs, because again, I think Joss Whedon, like you said, builds great characters, and that's why you can differentiate them. This is taking what Kung Fury is doing, and it's doing it on a masterclass level.
Yeah.
I totally agree. Is taking tropes that we all know and introducing them very clearly. And going with that. The Marvel universe and sort of everything built to that, and like no one knew who the fuck Iron Man was before he was, some of the nerds knew he was drunk in the 70s. That's about it.
Yeah.
But like this movie is taking like, Norse Viking babes with machine guns, check. Dinosaurs, check. Nerdy tech guy, check. Like it's taking all these things and it's doing it very well, but it's not like I don't know what drives Hacker Man.
No, but you know what he is and how he's going to fight and how he's going to respond to a situation.
Sure, but that's not a character.
It's a caricature.
Right.
But again, it's very hard to do well. It's
sure.
one of those things
I think we're arguing about agreeing with something.
No, it's one of those things that's fundamental to filmmaking, but it's like, very few young filmmakers get that right. And like very few young filmmakers, myself included, find it difficult to like put characters on screen and have them be identifiable and quick and understandable really, really easy, like using a visual medium that way. And this guy does it in his I think maybe his first short film. It might not be.
Right.
But with like 5 characters, really quickly sets up the team. There are a lot of like big Hollywood films that don't do it. That don't do that.
No,
well.
and actually, not to because just to bring up the last project that I was working on, it's that I mentioned it last
World
week,
Domination,
World
yeah.
Dominated Incorporated. That's kind of a similar thing. It's 6 very strong different characters that we're trying to set up very quickly, and it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard, and we just wrote the half-hour pilot.
Yeah.
And trying to get them sort of in it's much different format if you're doing a half hour than like 7 or 8 minutes. Just like a half-hour film is much different than a feature-length film.
Yeah.
It's difficult as shit to do.
It's really and I think he should, David Sandberg should be commended.
Yeah, no,
he
should.
For that kind of visual and storytelling precision.
And also choices in what story to tell to make it easier.
Yeah,
to do those things well. Yes,
I think we're talking about this film more seriously than it should be talked about, but at the same time, I think we want to appreciate the craft that goes on.
Right. Well, how can you not? I mean, look, we're talking about it in a very serious light, but this dude and his team. I mean, this was their life for 4 years.
Yeah.
Like, I know he probably took a couple other jobs between, but like this, here we go. Now we're going to bring it back and we're going to agree with something about Avengers.
We really got to rename this podcast.
Yeah. The only podcast where Shahir never agrees about Avengers. No, the love behind this is very apparent, just like you can tell the love behind the Avengers. First one was very apparent. This film it's different in the sense of this is obviously a passion project that he didn't like. A major studio wasn't behind him, and he just decided to do it along with his team. And you can tell in the final product that like, wow, everyone involved in this cared.
Yeah, and everyone worked really hard. And the cool thing is they really delivered as well. They really I think
it took longer than they promised, but or maybe it didn't. I don't know.
But they didn't like fail to deliver, like every scene was big. It escalated the like you could argue that the original trailer kind of gives you like 80% of what's going to be in this film.
Right.
But you still like watching the 30-minute version. I still felt I got more out of it than the trailer.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he should be commended for that. Now, then the other side of it is the villain.
Right. Let's talk about that.
The Kung Führer. Or Adolf Hitler, as we like to know. I think this, this is a fun character to play with. Like they're being, you can go back to Chaplin, like the Great Dictator.
Sure.
People like to make fun of Hitler because although a monster, he is a ridiculous figure. And this film has this great monologue about what an Aryan mustache is. And I think it's just like, right. Like, he really does tap, it sounds like I'm taking this film way too seriously, but I think like the kind of comedic writing that he's able to bring to like, okay, instead of like, here's just a generic bad guy, our bad guy is Adolf fucking Hitler.
Which, I mean, look, I'll play devil's advocate here, which could be argued is the generic bad guy.
Yeah, but that's what
it does it for a comedic purpose in this film.
That's what the film is.
Yeah.
So it's just great it's fun writing. Yeah. My only hesitation about this film is David Sandberg does not need to take my advice in any way, shape, or form.
Don't listen to the only podcast about your film, David Sandberg.
But I hope that in the next thing that this guy makes, and he's enormously talented, has some kind of evolution, either in story style, can he sustain what he does here in 30 minutes across 90 minutes, and that requires a different kind of storytelling.
Sure. I bet you he can.
I think he can. I think he can. I just don't want to like see him not do that because that will be the death of him.
Yeah. I was just looking at the Kickstarter. Apparently, it funded fully in January 2014.
Right.
So I could have swore it was around longer than that.
I feel like the trailer was around.
The trailer was around longer, and then maybe he threw it on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to look up the timeline. I'll have to hack that later.
It's a curious thing, kickstarting for a short, and you have to really make it clear. The budget that they had for a short film here is ridiculously high. Like $600,000 for a short film is a huge budget.
But they spent. It looks like they spent it well.
Oh yeah, it's on the screen, but but short films don't tend to get those kinds of budgets.
Yeah,
like short films range from $20 right up to, you know, 20,000, 100,000 is kind of the old, like in New Zealand,
Sure.
there's a model of short filmmaking where 90,000 is the upper limit. That model seems to be going away, you know,
Right.
as people can do more with less resources.
Sure.
I'm not, you know, the ethics of that are to be debated.
What?
But, you know, $600,000 for a short film is a lot of money.
Yeah, but I think
Justifiably so in this case. I
but
think
like
so.
think about it this way. If this was a Hollywood film,
Yeah.
if this was a major studio, even if it was only still half hour, I know that doesn't happen, but let's
Yeah.
just for the sake of argument say it could. What do you think it would cost? It would cost way the fuck more than 600,000.
It would cost more, but there's more potential for a return. That's the difference.
Sure.
You know, so you could argue like 30 minutes in a Hollywood film might cost $5 million. You know, like
Right.
30 minutes of Mad Max will cost $20 million
Right.
probably, or something like that. But there is more. But A, that's built on a franchise that already exists, that already makes money, that has star power behind it, and has much more potential for return. So $600,000 on an untested, funky comedy that was funded on Kickstarter is a greater risk because, and you know, fundamentally there is no. I mean, I know they're selling T-shirts, they're selling versions of the film online.
It's not a greater risk though because the backers, unlike a studio that's putting up $5 million, backers are $5 and $10 for the most part. You know,
and
like
they're not
it's-
expecting a return.
right.
They've already paid.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, they're paid for what they're getting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still think, you know, with all that in mind, you know, like, and without the infrastructure and studio overhead that comes with making a feature film, $600,000 for a 30-minute green screen film like this is a lot of money, and it's and I want to say it's definitely on the screen.
Right.
It's definitely there. You know, so it's money well spent. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you hit YouTube right now and watch it.
Right. Oh no, absolutely. I completely agree.
Don. Do you know who Don Hertzfeldt is? The filmmaker.
Yeah.
So
My spoon is
it's-
too big.
my spoon is too big.
My anus is bleeding.
Oh, we could quote this all day.
Funny hats only, Shahir. Funny hats only.
So Don Hertzfeldt wrote an article this week, or he was interviewed this week by IndieWire, I think, about short film making, and you know, like he has an interesting art argument, which is that I think the main quote, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that artists should make art. It should be their full-time job. It shouldn't be the side gig that we do around commercial projects.
Whoops.
And that's what Don Hertzfeldt is about. I think, you know, like the thing about short films is short films can be like a great format for art. And, you know, like I think about the films of Louis Buñuel or David Lynch's early films as well, you know, which were fundamentally art pieces. They weren't films to like, you know, films to argue that I could make a feature film. You know, like that's the thing.
Films as not proving grounds. Yes.
Yeah, films unto themselves.
Yes.
You know, that's always been a thing that I really believe in. Short films should be works unto themselves, and they should work like in the same way that a great TV show, like The Wire, for example, could only be that length. A short film should be a story that could only be that length.
Well, you're not looking forward to The Wire, the movie?
Yeah, I don't think The Wire, the movie would do. Or, you know, like another example that I love that's a really good example of this is Watchmen or anything by Alan Moore. I think Alan Moore as a writer, like, you know, Watchmen and From Hell, to me, they work fundamentally in the best possible way as graphic novels. They do things in that medium and at the lengths that they're at, you know, because of the way he writes.
Sure.
And I think short films, you know, like I want to see more short films by Don Hertzfeldt. You know, I want to see more shorts by David Lynch. You know, like there was another you know major short film came out this week directed by Justin Lin, who directed The Fast and the Furious. They were basically trying to prove the worth of the Google 360 camera.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so there was he released a short film that was like an action short film in 360. It would be interesting to see an art project in 360.
Right.
It probably exists, but maybe we won't see it. I don't know. You know, it might exist in a museum or something like that.
It belongs in a museum.
Yeah. That's a long tirade about my feelings about short films, but
Welcome to the only podcast where Shahir will talk about his feelings about short films. Actually, that's the truth.
yeah.
All right.
We might. No, there probably are.
Yeah, there's at least 2 or 3 more.
But you and I have both made short films, and you know, like whenever I make a short film, I've got a little bit more pressure these days to make short films that prove that I can be a feature filmmaker.
Right.
And,
yeah, I can see that.
You know, like, and on the one hand, I agree with all that. You know, like with that kind of proof of concept.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I one thing I really dislike when I sit down to watch a short film,
right,
is when I feel like this isn't a film, this is a trailer for the director.
Yeah, which this Kung Fury did not feel like that.
This is one of those, Kung Fury is one of those rare things where I think this is a really good film that also happens to be a very good trailer for that director. It makes me want to see more of his work.
Of course.
Yeah.
No, and that's like the best trailers.
Yeah.
That's what its job was. I mean, I don't know. It's weird. Like I say that, but that's sort of reverting back to what I said. Its job wasn't to do that. It's just so good that it did.
Yeah. In this particular, you know, like you can certainly see David Sandberg has a place in the multiplex.
Right.
He has I feel like, you know, with the right kind of support, with the right kind of scripting, with the right kind of future development, there is definitely a place for this guy in the blockbuster realm.
Now let's talk about this, because if I agree, I think there is a place for him, but let's talk about how big that place is. And this is something I don't have the answer to. What? So I would like to sort of open this to discussion between Shahir and I. And actually, we don't have an email yet, do we? No, we got it. Next week we'll have an email for you to write in if you'd like to write into us for things we're saying. But this is a topic that I'd like to hear about. Sadly, you can't get a hold of me, so we're just going to talk right now.
Yeah.
Do you think that
Caller, dial in right now.
Yeah. Caller, you're live. Do you think, Shahir, that the space that David could, like, how do I put this? The audience that he could draw, right, on a main stage, or what we consider the main stage of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Do you think that audience is larger or smaller than, say, the audience for the film that just came out this week, San Andreas?
I think now you have to distinguish what, you know, the thing about San Andreas is that film is probably going to make a lot of money because it has a movie star, you know, like you know, The Rock in it, Dwayne Johnson, but it also has a major marketing machine behind it, you know, like, and a lot of ancillary marketing. You know, it doesn't just appear.
I know, but
and so here's the thing, is that David Sandberg could have that kind of impact if he's given the right kind of support.
So
from the people.
let's change the question a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you think with the same amount of advertising, support, etc.,
Yeah.
that the same amount of people would go to see, if they opened opening weekend, San Andreas Kung Fury, feature-length Kung Fury, let's say. I just want to make them as similar as possible, but maintain their styles. One's very Hollywood blockbuster nonsense. One is Cop with the Triceratops head nonsense.
Yeah.
Right? Do you think what do you think the split would be in that situation? Like with movie-going America, what would the split be if they can only see one film each?
You know, it is hard to say that a film like San Andreas wouldn't pull a bigger audience because of the factor of The Rock. The Rock is a worldwide, global phenomenon, and it would be, you know, like we saw it last week with Mad Max as well. Mad Max didn't pull in as much as Pitch Perfect 2.
Right.
You know, so
my point is this: while I do think that.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay.
Because there is a really good case study of this.
Okay, great. Maybe you can answer the question.
Is Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan was a young independent filmmaker. He made one independent film following, which barely got distributed in the United States. It was a success at Sundance. No, it wasn't even a success. It was a success at Slamdance. And then he made Memento, which got him into Sundance. That film didn't do gangbusters, but it got a lot of word of mouth.
Sure.
And then with the right infrastructure and support, there was 2 films between that. You know, the next film he did was Batman. And I mean, now inevitably Batman is a huge property, but David Sandberg strikes me as the kind of guy that if I was an executive in Hollywood and I was floating around some comic book or some property that needed revitalizing, I'd be like, hey, let's bring this guy in and see what he's got. You know, see what he says. Like, if we're doing, I don't know, you know, The Crow is up for a remake, and I know that they were working on it. I think it's fallen off the planet. But if I had the rights to The Crow or some other property like that, I'd be like, you know, like now he doesn't immediately strike me as the guy, you know, like it's not exactly the Crow, but I'd be like, this guy seems like a go-getter. He seems like he understands movies.
Yeah,
Maybe bring him in
I wouldn't bring him in for. I mean, again, who the fuck am I to say this? But I wouldn't bring him in for The Crow. The Crow is a very specific sort of like The Crow is a weird movie that I feel, and because of its 3 sequels, the original Crow is a film that will never be made again. There'll be movies named The Crow.
Yeah,
it's not going to be The Crow. Whereas there's been films that have been remade and whatever, like that. Just like Terminator Genesis isn't going to be Terminator 2. Yeah. Like, it's just what, you know, that's neither here nor there. But getting back to the original question, it's less of my, I'm not questioning his prowess as a filmmaker. I'm not questioning him versus the Hollywood machine as a whole. I'm saying this film with its style and what he's proven so far that he can do, and I'm not familiar with his commercial work, so I can't sort of bring that through it as well. Yeah. But like, we know he can make 80s parody the highest form ever, right? Yeah. So there's an 80s movie parody movie that's action. Yeah. And typical Hollywood blockbuster nonsense with a great name attached to it.
Do I think which one's going to get like?
I just still think that much like Mad Max sort of did. I mean, there was undercurrents of it, like getting swallowed by Pitch Perfect too. I feel like that anything like this film in a major motion picture sort of playground or schoolyard, I would say, even with equal footing, is going to get swallowed up. I feel like it's and swallowed up as I mean, not many people would go see it for the amount. Like if you know,
it's hard to translate YouTube numbers into like box office numbers
because they don't translate. Yeah, Instagram followers don't translate. Like all this stuff doesn't actually translate to people watching or doing things.
Well, it's that old economics question, which is that like the amount of people who will pay, you know, $1 for a loaf of bread versus the amount of people that are willing to pay $10 for a loaf of bread is that kind of curve and YouTube to box office. But I guess my question is, in the internet era, in the age of filmmaking, what was that Walter Benjamin book, Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction?
What? That old rag?
That old rag. You know, like if in the
Welcome to the only podcast about whatever the hell Shahir just said.
Oh, that's my film school film theory coming back.
Dust off your diploma.
Yeah, exactly. But like, the age of like, and this is another book I'm thinking about right now, but the age of the hyperlink, the age of like continuously interconnected media.
Sure.
Like that is not pay-per-view.
Right.
Is the box office relevant? I guess it is because we still, the economy of Hollywood still dictates.
The box office is relevant because the box office is relevant. Money only means something because money means something.
I guess what I'm saying is can David Sandberg be a huge star, a big name, without blockbuster? Like, could he make like 2 more Kickstarter films, like maybe at $1 million a piece, and make his name doing that? And could there be a new model where people are just paying?
There should be.
There should be.
But I think.
I guess the interesting thing is the metrics of it all.
And how quick? Here's the other thing. Yeah. YouTube video, 4 million in 2 days. That's fantastic. There's no question that those numbers are wonderful. Yeah. What about all the other fantastic videos that we've seen that have been like, holy shit, did you see this has 7 million views in 3 days? Like, holy crap. And now they're gone. Like, for instance, what does the Fox say? You remember that?
Yeah. That was like in the vicinity of 20 million views.
That was whatever, and it's gone now. You don't hear of Yivas or whatever the hell their thing is anymore. Like
it's that social network thing. It's like what's cool. 1 million isn't cool. You know what's cool? 1 billion.
Yeah. Or like again, this is a different sort of video, but remember the ice bucket challenge? You sons of bitches. Yeah. Like, it's the same stuff. And the internet, for being this medium that actually technically remembers everything, has the shortest memory.
Here's like we're talking about Kung Fury like it's the next greatest thing. And it's great that we're doing a podcast about it. And we're
the only podcast
about it. But yeah, in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, how much, like maybe it might be a month, like certain products
Sure.
have a certain longevity. And this is going to come off as humble brag or something at this moment as well.
Ooh.
But, I directed a music video called Cymatics, which was a science project.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. It got
It's a good video.
7 million views or something. It's in that vicinity
Mm-hmm.
right now. But we're not, and when we first released it and it was getting all that publicity, there was a lot of hype. We're getting a lot of emails, and those things just die off very quickly.
Yeah.
And you just, people stop emailing you and people stop calling
Because
you.
13 other things just came out.
Exactly. I mean, my attention span for new things is like the biggest thing that came out on the internet 2 days ago was Taylor Swift's Bad Blood video. Like a week ago.
Sure.
But who's watching or talking about that now?
I mean, the group of 14-year-old girls I was walking behind trying to get to work today was talking about it a lot.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny.
Oh, well.
They're just like, I haven't heard someone say they love something and oh my God, they love something as much over and over again as Taylor Swift's Bad Blood.
The song or the video?
I don't know.
I mean, Joseph Kahn is an interesting guy, the filmmaker who made that video. He also made a Power Rangers film a little while back.
Is that the dark one?
Yeah, he made
same guy? Yeah,
same guy. He's an interesting filmmaker. I don't think that's a particularly good music video.
No, it's not, because it does the exact opposite of what Kung Fury does. Is it takes all these characters that it names,
but
throws them at the wall, and there's not a character in that thing.
I mean, it's a music video, so it's a different medium.
I know plenty of music videos that have characters.
Yeah, but it's more difficult for that music video to.
The gimmick is so many female stars. Yes, I understand.
And then when it comes to that big explosion at the end, I have no idea who's who, and I don't.
Oh
care.
no!
But then again, I'm not the. It's very. You could argue very clearly that Kung Fury is aimed at me. Bad Blood is not aimed at me.
Yeah, sure.
So there is that distinction. I think anyone who listens to this podcast, which might be 100 people at best at this point.
Sure. We're growing, folks.
We're going to be the next big thing, though.
We're the only thing.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
So I mean, it's inevitable
that we are the hugest. Whatever.
Never fact check me.
People should go out and watch Kung Fury.
Yes.
And I think people should share it, and I think you'll have a lot of fun with this movie. And arguably, I would say it's more fun than you will have at the Blockbuster, at the cinema right now. Maybe other than Mad Max.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, I would completely agree with that. I think it takes, if you're a child of the 80s and you grew up with this sort of film, there's no way you're gonna watch this and not like it. And I think about this too. Like, what if I showed this to my dad? And my dad, he loves Cobra, but he would think this thing's fucking stupid.
Really?
Because he loves Cobra because when he saw Cobra was serious.
Right.
When I saw Cobra was cool, but also kind of hokey.
Yeah.
And now this is like taking that hokey factor and jacking it to hell.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and this is, we were talking about the value of short films being able to stand up on their own, and you could argue that this may not stand up on its own too. It requires a lot of self-awareness. It requires a lot.
You have to buy in.
You have to buy in because it's technically making a bad movie. That's the joke. We're making a bad movie, but we're doing it on a grand scale.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really good. I think we should get your dad on the phone after he's watched this and see what he thinks.
I will do this for next time we record. We'll do a quick recap of this. I will send my father a link,
and see if he
once he
it.
figures out how to use his email, he knows how to use his email. I'll have him watch it, and I'll have him record a very quick audio review of Kung Fury and what he thinks of it.
That would be amazing. I would love to hear that.
And he will hate it.
You think so?
I do. But anyway, I love it. You loved it.
I love it with some reservations, but I do think we should share it.
I think for what it is, it's fantastic, and you should all watch it. And it's a half hour of your life and absolutely no money other than electricity and your computer or smartphone device, tablet, whatever, and your internet connection. So it is going to cost you, per half hour.
Opportunity cost.
I'd say like $13.56, something like that.
Well, that's how much you would pay to go see San Andreas.
Yeah.
And you're going to have a bit of time in this.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So there you go. Anyway, this has been the only podcast about Kung Fury. Shahir, tell the people where else they can find you.
You can look at my work, and you can get in touch with me at shahirdaud.com. Shahir Daud. My mother is the only person that pronounces my name Shahir.
She's not here.
She's not here.
Is she?
She might be listening.
Are we in your mom's house?
Hi, Mom. Shahirdaud.com, which is SHAHIRDAUD.
Okay, we only have one more minute, so
.com.
Good.
Yep. Matt Kroll, how can we get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me by climbing to the highest mountaintop and screaming Skeletor at the top of your lungs. No,
and Skeletor will come down.
And he'll come down, and he'll be like, "He's over there." No, you can find me conveniently at MatthewKroll.com. That's MatthewKrol.com. Or you can find me on Instagram, Skeletor, the number 4, PREZ, Skeletor for Prez. Or you can find me on Twitter at EmperorMSK. Go there to any of those places to interact, or go to my website to see my work. Check out also www.wdi.pw. That's the work of WDI, World Dominated Incorporated, short series I'm trying to make with a buddy. Also, check out Same Night Movie Review for written reviews of actual blockbusters written by the one and only Stephen Buja, who is
a fantastic writer.
Killing it in that department. He's been with me doing movie reviews for quite a while, and we will be coming back with a live video podcast soon. But that is pretty much all of that.
If you want to get in touch, like, we would love it if you we haven't got an email yet, but we're working on it. Email us on those avenues.
Sure.
We'd love to
Sure. If you'd like to email us, our email addresses are there. And you can contact us, and you can tell us what you thought of Kung Fury. If one person writes us and just tells us what they thought of Kung Fury,
who's not your dad or my mom,
who's not related to either of us, I would call that a win. Anyway, we have hacked all the time we can right now. So I guess without further ado, I am Matthew Kroll.
I'm Shahir Daud.
And this has been the only, what was it?
The only podcast about movies.
Kung Fury edition. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Hacking.